What's up, everybody? Unrested back again, dealing with some pretty miserable weather here today in Japan, Kobe area specifically. Nonetheless, I will try to get out of JFAC. If there is some wind in this video, I apologize ahead of time. I'm pretty good at blocking out the wind with the different filters I have on my camera, but it happens, it happens. Anyway, following up with yesterday's JFAC, which was about crime in Japan. How safe is Japan? Watch that one. Watch yesterday's JFAC if you want to find that out. I had a few stories in there kind of inserted suddenly about my own experiences with the police. And not that I've ever done a crime in Japan, but I do get stopped quite a bit because I am Gaijin. And people said, well, why don't you just make a whole separate JFAC about that? And that's what this is, a whole separate JFAC about that. Now, how is this a JFAC? How's it supposed to help you? Well, you yourself may find yourself stopped by the police in Japan, and this is kind of a how-to of what you should and shouldn't do, what you are allowed to do, what your rights are, and what you really have no choice but to do if there is something you're asked for from a Japanese police officer. That being said, let's just get started and jump right in. First off, you will get your Gaijin card if you decide that you are living here or get a job here long term. If you're just here for a short trip or on a tourist visa, you will not need that Gaijin card. But if you are on a working holiday visa or a working visa such as a humanities, liberal arts, or some other visa such as entertainment visa, then you're going to eventually have to get your Gaijin card. I think usually within the first 3 weeks that you're here, so pretty quickly you need to get it. And if you don't, you can get in a lot of trouble. So just go do that, do everything you're supposed to do step by step. Don't ever try to skip one of the steps or not do something just because it'll make your life more organized and more safe and easier to go about just getting small things like a phone or cable hooked up in your apartment. So that being said, that card is something that the police will ask for if they stop you on the street. You do not need to carry around your passport when you have that card. You can simply show that card instead of a passport. Of course, if you're here as a tourist or on a tourist visa or just visiting Japan, they can ask you to see your passport. But that's usually the case for any country, really. The police can usually just stop you and ask to look at your passport. I think even in America, if you're visiting America, a police officer can stop you to ask for any sort of identity, including a passport, if that's all you have. So that's not that odd. The fact that they need to check your Gaijin card, though, it's always a bit odd to me. Yes, it is something that you need to follow by law. It is written into Japanese law that if a police officer asks a Gaijin for their Gaijin card, they need to show it. But I always ask why. There's no law that says I can't ask why. What is the reason you have stopped me and want to look at my card? And the answers that I've gotten have always been really random and actually never concerned with anything they thought I was doing, quote unquote. They always usually use some really stupid excuse or just don't have a reason. They're just kind of like, oh, you got me. So I guess, let's see. I'm trying to think back to when my first time ever I was stopped by the police to look at my Gaijin card. I think one of the first times was in an area that I lived in called Nipponbashi. For some reason, Nipponbashi, I was stopped many times to have my Gaijin card checked. Now, I will give them the benefit of the doubt that Nipponbashi was a heavily crime-ridden area for Japan. I mean, by that I mean it was totally safe for you and I Americans, but for Japan they would call it crime-ridden. They had the biggest Yakuza group, the Yamagumi-guchi, as they are known, had their headquarters in Nipponbashi. And according to the owner of a recording studio, that a death metal band that I played in back way before I was married here in Japan, apparently there's like a lot of drug sales and stuff out there. I never saw anything of the sort going on. Of course, then again, I imagine such a practice goes very discreet. So there I was stopped once while coming out of the grocery store, and it was plainclothes officers, so they weren't even dressed up as police. They had these little badges that they pulled out of their pockets, and yes, they were official police. They showed me their badges, their license, and everything. And it was funny because, man, they really just looked like normal little street kids. Like, I seriously thought they were just like 16 or 17-year-old, but apparently they were adult police officers dressed in street clothes, which they dress pretty fashionably, you know, I guess to fit in with that area because the Osaka downtown area is pretty fashionable. And they were like, oh, hey, can we see your Gaikokujin no Menkyo, your Gaijin card? And I said, okay, so what's the reason why you need to see it? Oh, and they said, oh, saikin wa kakujin supa no tabemono dorobo shita. Recently, a black guy stole groceries from the grocery store. And I was just like, wow, racist. Like, I just couldn't believe it's so racist. It's just like, oh, you couldn't just say recently somebody, like dareka, stole the groceries from the grocery store. You had to name a race. And in doing so, you're not only racist towards black people, but you're racist towards all Gaijin that, oh, well, we need to stop you because you're Gaijin, because another Gaijin who was black stole groceries. So, you know, you might have stolen something too, because, you know, you're Gaijin, you're not from this country. Okay, you know, maybe I'm reading into it too much, but for me, that's the way it came across. So anyway, I was like, yeah, whatever. And, you know, I let him see my license, and of course, that was it. I moved on. Moving on from there, other situations I've had were actually a more positive experience. Same area, Nipponbashi. Hold on while I just adjust my camera real quick here. There we go. Okay. Once again, Nipponbashi. Again, plainclothes officers. Must be a lot of plainclothes officers in Nipponbashi, also known as Den Town if you ever go there. I was about to walk into my apartment and all these, once again looking like kids, were in front of my door to my apartment, all Japanese. They were actually young adults, probably like 25, 26, but to me they always look way younger. And they were all standing in front of my door and I was like, whoa, what's going on? Like, are these a gang of people about to beat me or something? Like, and one of them pulls out the badge again. It's weird, it's like this little zip cord connected to the inside of their pocket, and it was just the same as the other cops that I had met on the street, so I was like, okay, this is legit. They showed me, they're like, hey, sorry to bother you, but a person just sold, yeah, and to their benefit, they said a person just stole a purse from this apartment complex, and they're running up and down this apartment complex and hiding in different apartments to escape us. Can we check your apartment to see if they're hiding in there? We don't think like you're trying to hide them because obviously you just got home, but we want to check if, like, you know, you left your door unlocked, if they ran in there. And I knew my roommate, when he was home, he would leave the door unlocked. So I said, yeah, okay, I understand that. So I let them come into my place. Like, they checked all around. They opened up my closet and everything. They were looking around. They really did seem like they were looking for spaces in which a human-sized person, I guess everybody's a human-sized person, was hiding. And so I thought, okay, you know, maybe this is legit. I don't know. I mean, still seems kind of sketchy. But as soon as they got back out to the stairwell, which kind of like wound down in this like square shape, I hear this scream and this yell and this chasing and someone get tackled, and I look over and the four of them are struggling with this really large Korean girl. Like, she was a big girl for a Korean girl. I mean, I'm not saying like, you know, she wasn't like overweight and fat, but she was just like muscular. And they're like struggling to like buckle her down into some cuffs, and she had the purse. She had stolen the purse, and I remember she was like screaming in Japanese, and she said something like, please don't arrest me, my visa's not valid. And I just thought, well, that's kind of silly. I mean, you're already getting arrested and now you're admitting your visa's not valid, so you're hoping that'll get you out? I don't understand the logic behind that one. So that was kind of funny. I mean, well, not for her, sorry for her, but she did steal a purse, so come on. Other incidents I've had, one time when I worked in Tondabayashi, which is another really kind of trashy area, I worked at a school there. I was a elementary school teacher, and so you can see what a life of crime I lived out there, being an elementary school teacher. On my way home, I'm stopped by a police officer, and that police officer says, I need to see your Gaijin card, please, and like real serious, like real stern. He was like this big dude, and I was just like, oh, okay, what for? And he's like, 'cause it's my job. Like really like sternly, like, you don't question me about that. And I said, oh, okay. And he's like, so, what's your job here? Do you even have a job here? And I was like, Chugaku no sensei. And he was like, oh, what? Like, he was really surprised. I guess he thought he had just caught himself a criminal. I was like, so, Chugaku no sensei, hoku no shigoto wa youchien no sensei. My other job is I'm a kindergarten teacher. And I was like, anata no shigoto wa nani? And he was like, keisatsu. Like, well, why would you ask me? Of course I'm a police officer. I said, I want to switch back over here between Japanese and English, and I'm starting to stutter. So I said, anata no shigoto wa hanin mitsukete kudasai. So, please do your job, which is to find criminals. Not youchien senseis, not kindergarten teachers, sorry. That's really hard when you switch back and forth between the Japanese and the English. Sometimes I want to half make the sentence Japanese and half make it English. Anyway, so he was all like, like, and he was kind of, he wasn't super young, like he must have been like 30 or something, which I still want to say is young because I'm 35. But he kind of started to get at a loss for words, and an older cop came over and was like, hey, your Japanese is really good. Thanks for coming out to our area here in Tondabayashi. Just be on your way. And then I left and I looked back and he was like chewing out the younger cop. Like, what the fuck is your problem? Why are you stopping that guy just to ask him for his Gaijin card? Did he look suspicious to you or something? So I was just like, all right, this older guy's taking care of it. Like, that's cool. Now, another time where I really got angry, and I didn't shout at anybody or anything like this, but I just really had a short, brisk tone with the cops who did this. I'm walking, like literally stopped for walking while white, to my kids' kindergarten to pick them up. And I'm in a rush because if you've been a parent in Japan, you know how much of a rush your life is. You are going from wake up, get your kids ready, go to work, get your kids to school, pick your kids up from school, get your kids from school to Juku, from Juku back home, get their dinner ready, all this stuff. So you've got like so much to do. I mean, you're constantly in a rush, and you're either walking or biking. You're not driving everywhere to do anything. And so I'm rushing to get there, and these cops are riding up next to me in a car, 2 cops, like riding up right alongside me and just like stop the car in the middle of the street, like blocking traffic, stop the car in the middle of the street and rush out, like coming at me fast. And I'm just like, what the hell is going on? What did I do? And so I just kept walking. Like, I wasn't starting to run or take off, but I just kept walking at a normal pace. No one yelled stop or anything like that. So they start walking up next to me and like trying to keep up pace with me, and they're like, hey, where are you going? Where are you headed to right now? And I'm like, I'm going to my kid's kindergarten. And right away you hear the needle come off the record. So why are you headed there right now? I'm like, to pick up my kid, you fucking idiot. Like, I didn't say that harsh, but I said, obviously to pick up my kid, I think I said. And they're like, oh, okay. Can we see your Gaijin card? And like before they could finish the sentence, I had already handed it to them. They're just like, oh, okay, haha, thank you. And we're getting close to my kid's kindergarten, and I stopped right there and I said, look, you will wait here, and you will not come any closer to my kid's kindergarten, because I'm not going to be embarrassed by you being with me while I pick up my kid. I'm not going to have 2 police officers come with me into the school, making me look like a criminal in front of my kid, in front of all his friends. And they're just like, oh yeah, no, that totally makes sense, man. I totally understand. Gomenasai, which is like, we're really super sorry. And they're just like, like, they waited for me outside, and I was super pissed. And I came back out with my kid, and they waited around the corner where the teachers and the other kids couldn't see. And when I came around the corner, they did this like super deep bow, like almost heads to the ground bow, like, Gomenasai, Akaman-sama. Like, they were like super sorry. Like, they realized, like, they're like, shit, we just stopped the guy who's just trying to pick up his kid, man. And like, I came out of there with 2 kids, so, a baby in each arm, and they're just kind of like, oh, okay. And they felt, a little bit stupid. They felt, I think, like they had gone a little bit too far too fast. This guy was rushing because he has a deadline to keep for babies. Again, a situation where, okay, my tattoos were showing for that one. It was the middle of like the most brutal part of summer. Sorry, but I'm not gonna wear long sleeves if it's my time off from work. I'm gonna walk around with, short sleeves, and that's what I had. I'm almost 100% certain that's why they stopped me. Gosh, this is going on long. This is a long video now. I still have more stories. Let's see. I was stopped while riding my bike one time. while I had my kids on the bike. And this is a situation again where it's like, I'm a father with kids, 2 kids, and this time my tattoos weren't showing, and I'm on the bike, and the bike is made to hold my kids. Like, it's got a seat in the front and a seat in the back. My kids are wearing helmets, they're totally safe. You know, the bike looks like brand fresh new. My bike still looks like amazingly fresh. It doesn't look like some piece I put together from junk parts or something. And they stop me and they're like, hey, we need to check the registration on your bike. Because every bike you buy in Japan, you're going to get this registration from the place you buy it from. They actually register your bike with the police department, so if it ever gets stolen, because a lot of bikes get stolen in Osaka, and you have a sticker on the back. It's pretty much like a miniature license plate. So I'm like, why do you got to check it? And they're like, oh, you know, just regular bike check. And I'm like, why don't you go check some other people's bike that are coming by here? Because I mean, I'm in the middle of like tons of people going past me. And they're like, oh yeah, we'll do that next. And they're like, so is this your bike? Who's this bike registered to? And I'm like, it should be registered under my wife. And they check, and of course the last name's Ackerman, like me. And how many Japanese women have a Gaijin last name? So it's like, you know, either I've really gone out of my way to find a very unique person to cover for me that happens to have the same last name that is Gaijin in Japan, or she's my wife, for real, imagine that. And they're like, oh, well, it says blah, 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 Ackerman. Is that somebody you know? I'm like, yeah, it's my wife. And they're like, oh, so this is your bike? And I'm like, yeah, I didn't steal it. And they're like, no, of course not. And I said, oh, yeah. Also, these kids on the bike, I didn't steal them either. I didn't steal them with the bike. And, like, people walking by are like, fucking idiots. Like, they're laughing their head off at this cop who's kind of, like, at this point, like, head down in his book trying to write stuff. Like, I don't know exactly what happened. I must have accidentally stopped you. Anyway, be on your way, sir. I apologize for the inconvenience. You know, just tries to write it off, tries to play like, well, you know, obviously I had my concerns. So those are kind of my situations. I can't think of anything else offhand. I think I do actually have like a couple more stories, because I've been stopped quite a few times. If I remember them later on in the year, I'll make another maybe follow-up video, part 2 of Scott's running in Japan with the cops. But anyway, that's a little bit of my own experience. You too may experience that, either due to things like tattoos, piercings, dreadlocks. I don't know why dreadlocks get a lot of people stopped, but they do. Long hair. I guess if you dress in a shady way, you know, all the typical very blanket statements, bigotry, and typical, you know, stereotyping that cops do in probably almost any country. I'm not going to just blame Japan, I'm going to say any country. That said, you know, just listen and show them your stupid ID. You know, question them if you want to. Be a bit of an ass if you want to. They're not going to throw you in jail for being an ass, but if they do ask you to see your Gaijin card, do show them the Gaijin card. You have to by law. If you signed up to head over to the country, then you signed up to show them your Gaijin card or your passport, which, you know, almost any country they're going to ask you to see your passport if you're a visitor to their country, with understandable reasons. That being said, you know, be safe. You know, don't always be 100% jerk to the cops. I'm probably too much of a jerk. But that's my little stories. I hope you enjoyed them. If you did, please like, comment, and subscribe. I am Unrested.